Oh, oh, hey, it's Jeremy Griffin with the New York City Hemophilia chapter. You ever feel just exhausted? Like, what's it worth? I'm just gonna go ahead and take a nap for a while. Well, we all get there. We all feel like sometimes we just want to take a nap and take a break from it all. But there are some tips and tricks you can use to stay on track. And this episode of Pathways to Physical and Emotional Wellness, we are going to talk about that. Some, habits and ways that you can better self coach yourself through those times where maybe anxiety and fear might knock you off the rails a little bit. So sit back, enjoy. Oh, and before we get started, a big thank you to our sponsors, HFA, CVS, and of course, Pfizer. In fact, here's a message from Pfizer to show you a little bit more about what they're doing in the community already. Take a look. All right, now we can get started. But before we do, I want to share with you one quick bonus piece of materials that we're going to have to share with you. In the link below, you can see there's a PDF right there. It's called Being Empowered Includes Being Prepared. It's a great resource for anybody that wants to know a little bit more about how can you prepare for emergencies? How can you make sure that if something goes wrong, you're ready? Well, sometimes things don't go the way you expect. So you have to have a way to prepare yourself. This episode on staying on track will help you, or the PDF will help you. So no matter what happens in your life, you're ready to stay on track. All right, let's get ready for the episode.
Hello, beautiful soul. I am so happy to be here. I am Bree. I am a neuroscience-based life coach and money healer, my friend. And today in this video, we are going to be talking about staying on track, how you can actually self-coach yourself through anxiety and fear, my friend. In this video, we're going to cover a few things. Number one, how anxiety and fear shows up in your daily life. Number two, what that actually means in your body, how that's feeling in the vessel that you have. And number three, ways you can actually self-coach yourself. My friend, if you can learn tools, if you can utilize these tools in moments when you are feeling unsettled, being able to self-coach yourself is so, so powerful. I wish we learned how to do this in school. At least we didn't when I was going through school. But knowing how to regulate yourself and self coach is so, so important. And we're going to touch on a couple of tiny, small tools that you can actually utilize. Okay, let's go. All right, here's the reality. Most of us experience anxiety and fear daily. And when we are starting to experience that, having either anxiety or feeling fearful or, add on any other emotion that you might be experiencing that kind of leads into that, is we often try to do one of two things. Number one, we shift into control. We try to control the situation. Or number two, we shift into avoidance. We just kind of, ignorance is bliss and we don't want to pay attention to it, right? Is this resonating? The hardest thing as we're feeling these unsavory feelings, is what I call them, is the sitting in the discomfort. It's hard to just sit there and navigate it. And I am someone who certainly operates into the I'm trying to control, right? Because our brains want to move us towards pleasure and away from pain. You've heard me say that. And our brain wants the feeling to go away, right? If we're feeling anxious or we're feeling fear, we've been taught our entire lives that those are not quote unquote good feelings. And so we don't want to feel that way because it's uncomfortable. And a lot of times it's uncomfortable because we've actually never learned how to sit within it, right? And so immediately we're like, how do I solve this? How do I get rid of this problem? I want to feel differently. And so we start to choose actions that can give us some relief, that help us feel better, that soothe us, right? So I'm someone who 100% goes into a type A like personality, right? If I'm feeling anxious, I will immediately go into where are we going? When are we going to be back? How are we going to get there? What if there's traffic? Like, just using that as a general example, my brain will take me down a pretty intense rabbit hole. Now, I have to say, in my past career, when I was planning events, this served me well because I was able to actually sit through and think, what are all the possible scenarios that could happen? And am I prepared for them? And honestly, I don't necessarily lean out of that. I allow myself to kind of go through that process because for me, there is an element where I do start to feel a little bit of relief just knowing that I'm prepared for whatever needs to happen, right? So you get to decide what kind of feels good in your body. But the reality is, when we're talking about anxiety or fear, it's kind of made up. Now, here's what I mean by that. I'm not saying when you are in an unsafe situation, you need to get yourself out, right? When we're talking about real fight or flight, we're talking about situations where your brain is either stuck in the past, you're reliving something over and over, or your brain is stuck in the future, which it is trying to predict all of these things that are going to happen, right? Which is where worry and anxiety and fear can really start to kick up, right? We only have this little moment that we're in right now. This morning is gone, it's not here, and you do not have any control over it. And there are a lot of things in our future that we don't have control over. We have control over what we're doing in the moment and how we respond to things. And that's really it. But we're not necessarily taught that as we're growing up, right? We're not taught how to just like sit in the discomfort. And the reality is, our society has, modernized, but our brains haven't. Your brain doesn't really know that we're not, dinosaurs aren't chasing us anymore. And so your brain will often perceive these little things. Someone saying something to you on social media, um, a family member saying something to you, it will perceive these things as threats. And so it starts to kick you into this like fight or flight mode, right? In your body because it does not know. Your brain also cannot tell the difference between what is made up, like what you are visualizing and thinking about, and what is real in the moment. I know that sounds bananas, but this is why when you can think about a moment that felt really good, your body actually goes back through the feelings. It's why when you're watching a movie and it feels scary, you feel fear in your body, right? Your brain doesn't know that that's not actually happening to you. Okay, so let's actually talk about what's happening in your body, right? So there's a way that your brain is processing information. And it's really important to understand this just on a basic level, right? We're going to go really high level on this because when you can understand this, when you can understand what's happening, it puts you in the driver's seat, my friend. So your brain is receiving information. It's receiving information from your five senses and from your body. Like, what is my body telling me and what's happening in my environment, right? It's scanning all of these things. And that information is actually starting, you can think of the base first. It's going through your brain stem and the diencephalon. Now, what is that? Essentially, these are the two areas of regulation, right? It's like processing everything, trying to regulate it before it moves into our limbic system, which is where it relates. So think of limbic system as your emotions, and then it moves into the cortex, which is the area of reason, right? So imagine, and it goes from the base up. Imagine you're feeling a lot of anxiety and fear and anger, whatever it is, right? You're feeling a lot of really heavy, full emotions, or it could be super excited, right? Can swing to the other side as well. Your brain will go into survival and it almost cuts itself off from the limbic and the cortex, right? So you can think of this as being your brain stem. If I pull my thumb here, and you can think of like your limbic cortex kind of pulling over it. And in those moments when everything's coming in and it's dysregulated, you can almost think of like this flying up. So when you've heard the phrase like flip your lid, right? You can almost think of this flying up, and your brain doesn't have access. It doesn't have access to the limbic or the cortex, right? So it can't actually start to regulate itself, and it can't actually start to make reason out of what's happening, right? So, the name of the game when we're talking about coaching ourselves is we have to get regulated, right? We want this to stay intact. We want, as we're receiving information, to feel balanced and move through that. So let's talk about some really easy actions that you can start to take as it relates to helping yourself regulate. Now, I just want to say this. You will know if you are in a dangerous situation and it's something where you actually don't have time to regulate and that fight or flight is serving you well, right? So I want to put that out there. And you will also know if some of the things that I am recommending, if you've tried them, if they just don't work for you and how your brain operates. The reality is, neuroscience is a very new science and we understand the brain, but each of our brains is still very different, right? So your brain is operating differently than someone next to you. We all have different nuances, I guess you could say, right? So, coaching yourself. The name of the game when it comes to fear and anxiety and just like starting to feel balanced is being able to coach yourself. So, number one, this tool, woo, it changed the game for me, my friends, because I was never taught this growing up, but it's super, super powerful. And that is when you are feeling an emotion that you have deemed unsavory, and I use unsavory because I don't necessarily want to say good or bad. The reality is we have already categorized emotions in these categories, right? When they're just neutral. They are what they are. I want you to set a timer for 90 seconds. 90 seconds, a minute and a half, and I want you to just sit in the emotions and allow. Now, it doesn't sound like it's going to do a whole lot, but number one, 90 seconds is going to feel a lot longer than you think. But here's what we usually do. We try to immediately solve the problem, soothe, and get out of the emotion. And what happens is we prolong how long it's going to be there. We just elongate the time period, right? If we can sit there for 90 seconds, that's usually about how long it takes for an emotion to pass through your body. And that will help you kind of get to a regulated state where you can actually start to relate and you can actually start to create reason around things, right? Okay. Number two, in those moments, and you could do this while after the 90 seconds, I want you to ask yourself, what do I need? And specifically use your name. So for me, I would say, Brianna, what do you need? It's really powerful to hear your name. We are drawn to hearing our name, but you will be surprised at what comes up for you. It's often very simple. Maybe it's like, I just need a quiet moment. I need to take a walk. I need a hug. I need peace. I need space. You will have an answer that will come up for you, and I don't want you to doubt it. I want you to just sit with it and do it if you are able to do it. But usually we forget to go within and ask ourselves what we actually need. And our bodies are really, really powerful. We are super powerful humans. And, when we follow our intuition, we almost always know what is best for us. But we are often in resistance to that because of what the outside world is telling us. So ask yourself what you need in that moment, and be open to what you hear. Number three, I want you to ask yourself if you are safe in this moment. Am I safe right now? And I say this because you might be in a moment of true fear, and I want you to keep yourself safe. Often we are perceiving danger about something that our brain just like doesn't recognize as not a true threat for us. And so by asking ourselves, am I safe in this moment? You're going to be able to pull yourself into a more logical space to say yes or no. Like, yes, I'm safe right now in this moment. Okay, right? So all of these exercises are to get you to a regulated space. It's to pull you back so that you're not spinning up, right? In this hyperactive space where you're trying to grab for the reasoning, but you just don't have access to that part of your brain. So we want to chill it out first. We want to cool it down, calm it down so that we can get to that space. So asking yourself, am I safe in this moment, will be super helpful. And then I want you to ask yourself, if you're still feeling anxious, you get to say, is the thing I'm fearing true? Is the thing I'm anxious about true? Right? This is a question that Byron Katie made very popular. She has 4 questions. I'd recommend her readings if that is something of interest to you. But the very first question she has to ask yourself is this true? Because like I said before, we're often living in the past or in the future. And we're not in the future, we're assuming something's going to happen. But the reality is we just don't know. We're here right now in this moment. And so again, just asking ourselves that question pulls us back into reality, pulls us down. And then we get to ask, if we're not feeling safe or if we're not feeling anxious, and again, I'm using safe as in like not like true danger, we get to say, what action can I take that will help me feel safe, that will help me feel calm, that will help me feel loved, whatever it is that you're experiencing. Ask yourself, what small action can you take? All right. My friend, self-coaching it's all about slowing down and giving your body a chance, giving your brain a chance to catch up with all of the information that has come through yourself and your body, right? And so when we are in this space, if you can self-coach yourself, i.e. slow yourself down, that mindfulness, that awareness is so powerful. Let me back up. It can be applied to every single area of your life. When I'm coaching my students through money and shopping, I have them pause before they buy something. That's really powerful because you know what? Most of my students' spending habits, or anyone's actually, are driven by their emotions. Again, we're back in that thought process again. So I want you to remember that slowing down, getting yourself regulated, knowing how to do that, knowing how to help yourself feel grounded is so, so powerful. Because I want you to remember that you are powerful. We so often seek outside of ourselves for comfort or for guidance. And we forget that we have an incredible GPS system in ourselves. And we forget that, our bodies are really in tune and we know a lot about ourselves. So let's not forget to ask ourselves what we need.